All right, guys. Hey, it's Jonathan Edwards here. Welcome to another video or an audio, depending on where you are. But listen, a disclaimer, as always, I work with aspiring athletes and their families. These are families who've got big athletic dreams and they're really go for it. My advice is geared towards them. So with that in mind, some of that advice may not rub you the right way if you are not as into it or committed. If you aren't willing to take 100% responsibility for your athletic experience, if you're going to blame coaches, blame the weather, blame something other than yourself, it probably isn't the advice for you. So if you're going to hang out, that's fine. Leave appropriate comments where necessary. But again, just a little disclaimer, this advice isn't for everybody. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Let's get started. Second question for tonight is, and this is really kind of coming after the Olympics and my article I posted on LinkedIn about Simone Biles and kind of what I think was really going on there. It's not just as simple as like the twisties or whatever. One of the conversations that didn't come out with the Simone Biles thing is, if I'm USA Gymnastics or if I'm her coach, I'm pissed that we didn't prepare for this. Right. And so when she bowed out of the Olympics and people were like, hey, and the people got all upset at the people who were like kind of being critical of it. The story that the media is not going to cover is this idea like, okay, where did whoever her is in her orbit, like her agent, her sports psychologist, like, the people around her, no one's talking about like that failure. Okay. So now, but one of the things I want to talk about tonight is in this idea of like performance principles. So, people were like going like, oh, it's a new generation of athletes and it's different now. And it's not like people were being critical of people who were being critical of Simone Biles or Naomi Osaka. And they're like, oh, she's so brave. Okay, wait a second. That's great. That's great. Celebrating bravery is great. Celebrating courage is good. However, for this particular task, okay, succeeding at the Olympics in Tokyo 2020, that didn't go very well, right? So she couldn't do that for whatever reason, okay, for whatever reason. And the idea there is not that it's like, oh, you're not a Black woman in America in 2020 trying to, like, it's not about that. You can't try to just narrow it down to something that's like because the principles around it are the same, regardless of what someone's going through, right? So like, I said this on a podcast last week, like the idea of, okay, when people were critical of the people who are being critical. And the hilarious thing about it is the most critical thing, the most critical judge of any athlete is the finish line, right? So like I grew up, I competed in an Olympic event, a timed Olympic event. So it doesn't matter if it's luge or bobsled or biathlon or track and field, right? Or cycling. Everybody comes to the line with their own shit, right? I can't think of a different word to say, right? Everybody's got their own baggage. Oh, you're a Black woman in America, and you dealt with like sexual abuse. Okay, that's your thing. Athlete over here, you're a mom, okay, and you lost a relative to COVID, okay, and then you over there, like, okay, you're from a war-torn country. And you over here, like your National Olympic Committee has no money. So you've basically funded this entire thing on your own. Okay. So the question is, how do you weight all that? You can't, right? We don't handicap athletes at the line. We just say, all right, here you go. Oh, you can't afford a high-tech speed suit? All right, that's okay. Go ahead. You're going to, oh, you can't afford like a carbon fiber bike or a fully custom one? Okay, we don't care. The sport doesn't care. The finish line doesn't care, because when the medals are given out, there's no asterisk that says, "Oh, you went through this, then you get a half point or a half second or whatever." It doesn't do that. but the principles around the performance, around successful performance, are the same. Okay. Now, a cool book for this, and I was trying to find on my shelf, and I can never find books on my shelf easily, which is unfortunate. But if you want a cool little background, one, go get my book, An Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life. Okay, go get that book, right? Shameless plug. But also another book that's really helpful is a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Okay, now there's tons of books, right? There's tons of books about success and principles of success and things like that. And all you need to do is read one good one, right? So if you don't read mine, go get The Success Principles by Jack Canfield, because there's like a bazillion, there's like 64, whatever, principles in that book. And the first one is about 100% responsibility. Okay. So as athletes, we go to the line, okay, or we go to the floor and we're getting judged, or we're jumping off a ski jump and we're getting judged and we get distance, like whatever. The idea is, if you're a swimmer in the pool, if you're a runner on the track, is that you're trying to get to that finish line faster than anybody else that day, regardless of what's going on in your life or what's going on in your environment at the moment, right? So rain, sleet, snow, hot. Like, I loved it, just drove me crazy during the Olympics. Like, the commentator is commenting on how hot it is at the track and field events. Yet there was another world record. There was an Olympic record. Oh, there was a personal best. There was a national best. Like, it just was endless. And so literally, while the guy's saying how hot and humid it is, they're setting records. So who gives a, you know what, right? Well, in North America, the general population in middle America, they're like, oh my God, it's so hot, I can never do that. I can barely go outside when it's like 72 degrees. Is there AC in this place? Oh my God, there's no AC. I am just sweating my what's off, right? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. When an athlete can take 100% responsibility for everything, then they can find a solution for everything. So E plus R equals O. It's another principle, like the event plus your response to your event equals your outcome. Okay. E plus R equals O. So while one athlete, it's hot, and one athlete said, all right, let's have a race in 34 degrees Celsius weather, right? 90 degrees Fahrenheit, whatever that is. Like, we're going to race today, 5,000 meters. Okay. Elite athletes will say, all right, let's do it. All right, it's going to be hot, but I just got to be ready for that, right? I may wear different clothes. I may hydrate extra. I'm going to get some more electrolytes in me, whatever. The idea is that you have a choice. Okay. All right. So you have a choice to come to the line and compete. Either that, or you don't. You quit. You walk away. So you're either going to have a good result and take responsibility, have a good result, or you are going to step away. You decide not to do it. But the truth is that performance principles around anything are timeless. Like, if you have a business and you have a product, but you have nobody to sell that product to, you don't have a business. Whereas somebody else who creates a product around a market, like around an audience, like, there's a very famous story. It's like, okay, if you're going to have a hot dog stand, like, let's say I'm going to give you a hot dog stand and we're going to sell the most hot dogs. What's the number one thing you're going to want to have a successful hot dog stand? And, some people might say, like, oh, I need a big awning. We've got to have a certain brand of hot dog. We got to have a certain temperature of water. Like, I got to have maybe some sodas to sell. And all of that doesn't matter. What matters is you want to have a hungry audience who likes hot dogs, right? That's going to be the key to your success, right? So as athletes, what ends up happening is that athletes will, if they start to bitch and moan, complain about the weather or the venue or what's going on, they've lost before they even started. So, kind of bringing this back to kind of the whole Simone Biles thing that happened recently, what really frustrated me was this idea of, like, nobody was going to talk about, as an athlete, as a young athlete, you don't always think about these things. There's only a handful of athletes that really think, and hopefully more will think about this now, but they get ahead of the game. So like Novak Djokovic at the beginning of the Olympics talked about how hot it was. He also talked about how pressure was a privilege, which is a Billie Jean King buck from ages ago. But the idea was like he lost, I think, in the quarterfinals. Was the bronze medal match? Can't remember. But somebody still won the gold medal, right? Somebody still dealt with the heat. Somebody still made it through their opponents. How? Why? Because they took 100% responsibility and figured out like how to do that, how to succeed in the moment. That's all your athlete can do. So the U.S. Olympic Committee, while we can say like the U.S. Olympic Committee failed Simone Biles, the U.S. Gymnastics failed Simone Biles, her coaches, her inner orbit failed her, her agent especially probably failed her. But she as an athlete still has to take responsibility and go, what could I have done better to succeed in that moment? If in fact that's what she was doing, because I don't believe that I don't believe that they're fully going after the gold medal in this Olympics. I just don't. But the idea is that the principles around performance are timeless. So whether your athlete is like Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y, a millennial, whatever, doesn't matter. If they're an activist athlete or they don't care, whatever. If they're tall, short, fat, thin, whatever, you've got to come to the line, and then you're going to compete on that day, and then you're going to get a result that day. And if your preparation prepares you for that day, then hopefully, then you'll be the one that comes out on top. But when people who aren't particularly athletic throw in these ideas like, oh, well, but she had all this pressure on her. The finish line doesn't matter. The judges doesn't care. They don't care. The finish line doesn't care. So, and that can seem really harsh, but the thing that's harsh is the harshest thing is the score. It's the finish line. It's the clock, right? It's the score on the scoreboard. That's the harshest critic you can have. And people got to remember that the principles to succeed are going to be the same forever, right? They're going to be the same forever, regardless, okay, of what's going on. And so I want you to focus on that. So what happens, some of my parents, I was doing a coaching call just this last week with one of my parents of an athlete who has Olympic hopes and dreams. And they're like, they're talking about things about, that fall into like kind of the political side of thing. Like, oh, this coach likes that athlete. Well, I'm like, hey, whatever. Doesn't matter. How are you going to work around that? What are you going to do? Right. We're going to talk about that a little bit in the last segment today. But the idea is that sometimes parents will talk, they will not know really good performance principles. Right. They may think they do, but when it comes down to it, they think that, oh, it's too much work, or I don't want my athlete to burn out, or this or that or the other thing. Doesn't matter. Like either you are going to go with those performance principles or not. And, it's if you have to quit, and by quit, I mean step away and not have the result that somebody else will have that day, then that's your choice. Right? And so that's that. I know people go like, oh, that's so harsh, but I'm like, nope. The harshest thing out there is the scoreboard. It's the finish clock. It's, the harshest critic out there is Omega, which runs all the timing at the Olympics. That's the harshest critic. Nothing harsher than that. All right. So keep that in mind. All right, guys. Hey, it's Jonathan. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you would. Hit the thumbs up. That would be huge. And also, when you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. That way you get notified of future episodes. And after you've done all that, check out mentalperformanceschool.com. The link will be in the descriptions below. And it is my program that I created for aspiring athletes and their parents and their families. So it's the only program of its kind. You see a lot of people reach out to a guy like me when their athlete's broken and they feel like their athlete's plateaued and frustrated. And the truth is that you got to put in the work way before that. And mentalperformanceschool.com is that program to help you avoid those pitfalls before they become an issue. Mental health is a real hot topic now in the world of sports, but it doesn't have to be. And the reason it is a hot topic is because a lot of athletes are unprepared. And mentalperformanceschool.com is a way to prevent that. And like I said, it's the only program of its kind. So check it out. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.